Welcome to the Top Agent Podcast. We speak to top industry leaders in real estate and extract their insights to help you grow your business. This podcast is powered by Web for Realty, the leading provider in real estate marketing tools. As our way of saying thank you to our listeners, we're offering an exclusive 2-month free promo to the best IDX websites, CRM, and email marketing tools in the industry. Just go to topagentpromo.com to claim this exclusive discount, no strings attached. If you're looking to attract leads, build relationships, and close more deals, go to topagentpromo.com and get started. All right, I am very excited to introduce my next guest. I am speaking with Bryan Burns. Bryan's a realtor with RE/MAX from Orlando, Florida. One of the hottest real estate markets in the world right now. So I wanted to speak to Bryan, hear from the source, how he's faring in such a high demand market, what's working, what's not, and hopefully learn a lot from some of his experiences that others can apply. So Bryan, welcome to the Top Agent Podcast. Very excited for you to be here.
Hey, and thanks for having me. It's always great to get out and talk about the industry and, educate and give people some good tips of the trade. So.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. So just to kick things off here, if you don't mind, tell us a bit about yourself and how you landed into real estate.
So actually, believe it or not, before I got into real estate, I was a firefighter. And so it was in a coastal area. So it was pretty nice, but, the pay wasn't amazing. And I kind of decided, I wanted to go to a job where the harder you worked and the better you were at what you did, directly resulted in the ability to, obviously make more money. So I started doing it actually on the side, and then, my business quickly grew, which is great. And so then I went to do it full time, which is a very scary leap to make from a job where you have a pension and healthcare to jumping in as a 1099 and you don't know where your meal is going to come from. So
I can only imagine. That's amazing. So how long have you been a realtor now?
We're going on year 7, I believe now. So yeah, 7 years.
Year 7, amazing. So definitely a lot I want to get into there for sure. But just for context, I always like to ask this question for guests just to paint the picture. But how many transactions do you do in a given year or expecting to do this year?
So I've been very fortunate where my business has grown exponentially each year. So I think I started off my first year doing like 3 or 4, the next year, 7 or 8, but I'm doing about 50 transactions a year. And it's been great because, some of the stuff that I'm sure you guys learn on this podcast is that if your business should grow that way, it should grow every year, should be basically a raise for you, because if you're keeping in touch with your clients and you're giving them the good service, then they should be bringing you more people. So
that's amazing. So right now you're doing call it 50 plus transactions per year as a single agent.
Right, and I don't have a team or anything like that. I have my business I call the Master Key Group, but it's as a single agent. The big thing too is also being able to locate investors. I mean, that to me is especially in a Florida market, it makes it a little bit easier. But you got to think those people are looking online. They're not going to my open houses. Somebody from Canada isn't walking into an open house to find me. They're looking at my digital and my online presence, which is where I get a lot of my business from.
Perfect. I want to get into a lot of that for sure, but that's amazing. So 7 years in, you started off doing, a few transactions in your first year or two. Talk about that. I'm sure a lot of people listening are wondering, what the heck did you do to get from a couple of transactions a year to 50 plus in only 6 years, which is not a long time.
Yeah, so one thing that I did, and this is kind of, a lot of people, they jump into real estate and they assume that every person they know, all of their friends and family are going to immediately come to them looking to buy homes. They don't realize that there is other people who have been establishing themselves and that they're ahead of you in the pecking order. So what I did is I actually joined a team, and I do recommend that for most starting real estate agents, because especially if this is going to be your sole source of income, because what you have, they call them rainmakers or whatever, and so they're going to provide you with the with the listings or with the buyers, and you can learn. I learned probably in my first year and a half on a team, on a high volume team. I learned as much in a year and a half as probably somebody that would be 7 years in my shoes now has learned. So you learn a lot of, just doing transactions. It's just like anything else. The more you do it, the more problems that you find, the more things that you see, the more. I mean, now we have such a hot market. The strategies, for right now, we have what's called an escalation clause, where you basically up your offer higher than any of the others. I was using that back in 2015, and now it's a very popular thing to use, but I've been using it for years to get my clients' offers accepted.
That's amazing. So, okay, so you recommend new agents should definitely start working with a team, just for that experience, get your feet wet. How long were you with a team when you started out?
I was on a team for about a year and a half, and it's a good way to, because not all teams are great, and not all you're able to kind of pick and choose what you want to. When you branch out on your own, you're able to pick and choose what things that you want to take away from that. So when you see your clients' transactions, and then maybe your team does something a certain way, but you get the kind of, because sometimes the team leaders can get a little bit detached from their own market, because a lot of them are not, they're just doing listings, and so what you can do is you have your eyes like right there and your boots on the ground, if you will, and then you can take a lot of those things and bring them into your business, but you can also take certain things out of it that you say, maybe that's not something, or maybe they didn't see a dollar for dollar value in some of the things they were doing and stuff like that.
Amazing. If you had to take, if there are like one or two takeaways that you got from joining that team for a year and a half, that you're now applying to your business today, what would you say those one or two things are?
So I would say, staying in touch with your clients, and I'm sure this is a podcast on top agents, so this has to be something that's been said 1,000 times. But so here's a small little, like, just as far as like a takeaway. What I do is I put on my calendar the day they close, and then I get their birthdays. If I don't get it throughout conversation, I get it from the lender, who usually is able to give that to me. Small little thing. Every first of the month, I sit down and I do handwritten cards. For, obviously, as you get up to hundreds of clients and stuff, it becomes more difficult, and you might choose another route to do it. But I do cards, and I handwrite the address. Like, that's the big thing, because when they see that, they're sifting through their mail, they're throwing it all out. But then I have, and so I send them first of the month, I write them all the cards, and then I leave little sticky notes on them, like little sticky notes like right here. Oh, can't see it that much, but yeah. So maybe that shows my address. Oh, well. But either way, but like, it's a little sticky note, and then on that day I send it out, So that was one of the biggest things to take away from it, would be, stay in touch with your clients, but also be very honest with them, because that's another thing too. Because one of the things I like to do is tell them all the things that could potentially go wrong. Not all of them, but things that could go wrong. That way, when something happens, these little speed bumps that could seem devastating to a client, but is something you see every day, it no longer carries that huge impact anymore, because you've already told them that this is something that could happen.
That's awesome. Great advice there. So you said first of the month, is this every month you're doing this, or?
Yeah, so first of the month, what I do is, and so I have a lot of investor clients that I work with. Obviously, I don't need to tell them, like I tell them like I send them a happy birthday text or something like that. But like the personal clients, like, so and then, as my business grows, obviously that's not something that's scalable. Usually you want to do something that's scalable, but this, you can alter it a little bit to have it to where, you have printed out cards that are a little bit easier, obviously more manageable, something like that to do. So.
Yeah. And what are you putting in these handwritten notes? Is it like just market stats, or just personal messages, or?
So that's one thing I don't do, is I don't make it about marketing. I don't make it about, hey, I'm your realtor, because a lot of people, they're going to come back to you because they like you. And that's it, because I can guarantee you, especially in today's market, there was the big meme where there was more there was more agents than listings, which was an actual real fact. And and so they're gonna work with you because they like you. It's weird that in this industry that being good at your job is actually secondary to being liked. That's so people will work with, their cousin or a friend who just got their license 3 days ago, over somebody who might be one of the most, prominent in their field, just because they feel comfortable and they want to, work with them. So I don't put any kind of marketing stuff in there. I don't make it another sales pitch. All I do is, maybe I'll every once in a while sign it like, oh, your favorite realtor or something like that. But when I first started doing it, I would try and go on their Facebook, so if I'm friends with them, and try and see something like, oh hey, I saw you got a new puppy, or this that, and then by the time eventually I have too many clients where I can't. That's not obviously, so I had to scale that down. So that'd be a good way, But I just basically say happy home anniversary, or whatever. Hope you love in your home, Brian. That's it. So very easy. That's how you're able to do volume like that. Make it simple. Don't overthink it, because the worst thing you can do is nothing. Right? So at least do something.
Amazing. So to talk about that a bit, so what do you use to sort of manage? You said, two things you like to get right away is the closing date and birthday. So what do you use to sort of manage this, like CRMs or things like that? What's your process
So
like?
I keep them in a CRM, but it's actually just Google Calendar. That has been my best friend throughout this whole thing. So I just put them as a contact in, because I use Gmail. So I put them as a contact in there, and you can add their birthday, so it automatically fills in when their birthday would be. And then the home anniversary, it's just kind of my closing checklist. You gotta do this, and this, and then also add the date to your calendar. So then the first of the month goes through. I just cycle through the calendar, see who's come up, and then just fill the cards out. I mean, honestly, even if I'm doing like 10 or 15 of them, it really only takes a half an hour to 45 minutes, even if you have a lot of past clients.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, I switching gears a little bit. I'm very curious. I've been speaking to a lot of realtors in Florida, and everyone's sort of saying the same thing about how crazy busy it is there. Never seen a market like this before. Dozens upon dozens of offers on homes. So, like, what's going on in Florida right now? What are you seeing?
I mean, it's been craziness. I mean, you see all kinds of things like and I know people are looking from all different areas or watching from all different areas. So escalation clauses means that basically your offer will automatically beat another offer. So say, for example, you offer $300,000 on a house, but you will escalate to 350, which means that you'll beat any offer up to the amount of 350. So if someone offers 340, you'll offer 341 automatically, and then that would technically become the highest and best. That's a big thing. People paying for their own agents. I've seen like people offering to pay the seller's closing costs, because the other problem you run into is the appraisal. So if you have a home listed for 350 and I offer you $10 million financed, well, it doesn't matter, because it's not going to appraise at that price, right? It looks great, and if it did, then fine, but it's not going to happen. So people are looking for kind of creative ways to get the asking price without the appraisal being the problem. So a lot of people are coming in. I literally just got an offer this morning, and it was $10,000 over asking with what's called an appraisal gap coverage. So say the home was listed at 400, they've offered 410, and that even if it appraises at 400, they'll still pay 410. So, wow. I mean, it looks like Black Friday at Walmart, when you go to these listings, especially like, first time home buyer priced homes, like 300 and under, it's insanity.
So have you experienced anything like this in your 7 years in the business?
No, everyone thought the housing market was going to just tank after COVID. And I just didn't have, obviously I have a vested interest in not believing that, but I really don't think it will, because, even with the mortgage forbearance and things like that, I think a lot of people used forbearance, but I don't think they actually, not to say they abused it. I don't think they needed it, but in a time like this, it's much better to have a mortgage payment in your pocket when you're unsure of the future than to make a mortgage payment if there's no penalty for not doing it. So I feel, and now the mortgage forbearance is down to I think 4, maybe high 3%. So, but yeah, so a lot of people, they thought the market was going to go down, and I mean, it's nothing like it has been, especially in the last 2 months. So
Yeah, no, I could see that. Sort of hearing the same thing from agents everywhere, but obviously you hear
yeah.
Florida a lot, in the news and just speaking to a lot of people in Florida. But, so a question related. So as an entrepreneur, as an agent, how are you capitalizing on this frenzy? Like, are you seeing opportunities, for example, more with sellers, buyers? Like, what are you seeing in that sense?
I mean, the obviously, he who has the listing can, rules the world at that point, for the next week because everybody wants to. So the big thing is to continue that streak because if you do good marketing, and you can even have Facebook do localized marketing and stuff directly to, people a half a mile out from your listing. You can make it that focused, and then that way you're hitting them because a lot of people are still stuck inside. And so they're using Facebook. I mean, if you looked at Facebook did their earnings, and it was insane because everyone's sitting there staring at Facebook. So a lot of people are paying money, to do advertising there. So that would be the big thing is to get more listings. If you have a listing, you can pretty much count on that check coming in. But if you have a buyer, it's not. But obviously, you want clients on either side. The big thing is being able to have the right strategy to get your buyers under contract because buyers are still buying homes. Every time a home comes up, someone's buying it. So it really comes down to making sure your clients offer the most appealing without putting them totally out there. So
Yeah, makes sense. Great point about Facebook for sure, and just the amount of eyeballs that are on these social
yeah,
platforms right now.
Instagram,
Um,
Facebook, all of that stuff.
Absolutely. You alluded to it earlier, but I'm also noticing a big wave of people, not only in the U.S. but sort of all over, looking to relocate. Um, and you mentioned you have your digital strategy for that. So, are you doing anything online to attract these people and meet people online that are looking to relocate?
Yeah, so I mean, the big thing is that there's a lot of people that are relocating. People are looking for secondary homes. I mean, the rental market here is insane as well because you already have the rental market of just the people here is always regularly high, but a lot of people are coming to Florida because it's a less restrictive state, if you will. So people from California and people from New York, where it's a little bit more strict, they're looking to have a little bit more, be able to go out to dinner and things like that. So they're coming down here. So, but when they get here, like Facebook is such a great tool. You can target ads to people who have just been in the area. So say you could target Disney World and Facebook, and I mean, they're stealing all your information, whatever. It is what it is because, so you might as well use it to your advantage, right? So you can put anybody who has, for a good example, anybody who has been near Disney, you can say anyone who's been near Disney in the last 30 days, send them my advertisement. And you can advertise vacation rental homes, and so it's almost like there's too many possibilities that you could not even accomplish them all. But I mean, there's just so many. Like I said, you could do your own listing, and then anybody who's been within 30 miles of there, or anybody who's related to anybody who's been 30 miles of there. So now you could have their family members who came to visit them that are now looking for a place. So I mean, like I said, it's pretty limitless what you can do with online marketing. So it just comes down to finding a strategy that works for you.
That's another great idea, great example there. So how much, if you don't mind sharing, like how much do you invest like in a month, let's say on Facebook ads and things like that in your strategy?
It depends on the month. So I have been doing. So I start when COVID came around. I was like, this is a great time to start really pick up marketing because a lot of people they're scaling it down. They don't, and so but everybody's stuck inside. But real estate agents they don't think like, oh well, no one could buy houses. Why am I marketing? Me, I went the other way with it, and I go, I can take advantage of this void, where there's not that kind of real estate marketing. And so what I did was I did a web series, and so with that, when I was doing that, I would spend upwards of like I think it was $25 to $50 a day just marketing that. And then I had my own little like preset marketing thing. So I would just enter the post into there, and it would say market this to anyone who's interacted with my Facebook or my Instagram page in the last 90 days. Then the other one would say anybody who's interacted with the actual post from the series. And then the other one was like friends and family, because that's the biggest thing. I honestly, people would come up to me. I would just be out in general, walking around at a restaurant or something. Someone would come up to me. They go, "Man, Bryan, you must be killing it." And this was back when I was, not really doing as much. And they go, "Man, you're killing it." And I go, "What do you mean?" "Man, I keep seeing your advertisements. I'm paid $1 a day to send them just to my friends and friends of friends." And that was it. And I think that was something big, because a lot of my business comes from my own sphere of influence. And people referring that business to me, because you want to be that guy. So it used to be, a lot of real estate agents, they get grief because every time they go anywhere, all they want to talk about is real estate. People actually engage me to talk about real estate because I'm seen as the person, I'm the go-to kind of guru, and not to call myself a guru, but like I'm saying, that's how they view me. So $1 a day just to friends and friends of friends on Facebook. And now you have that second degree too. So, I mean, that to me was one of the best investments I made as far as, investing in like marketing and stuff like that. And it's so cheap. Any level of real estate agent could do it. And you could do $5, $10, however many dollars, and you could always scale that up. That's easy. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, great point there. The classic retargeting. I've experienced similar too, where people see your ads and they're like, "Yeah, you're killing it." Yeah, very affordable in the back end, as you mentioned, $1 a day, sometimes all it takes. So from an ROI perspective, then, do you see more like, let's talk about Facebook, because that's what we're talking about. Do you see from an ROI, you're actually getting leads that you're working with, or do you see it more valuable from like the brand awareness point of view?
So leads in that are third-party leads who are people that I've never met or talked to before, the ROI is, that's one of my goals, is that I have such a strong sphere of influence, and my business has such a strong influence in my sphere, that's a lot of what I get. And so my whole thing is that, there's a whole world out there. I'm in this one little lake, and there's a whole world out there, but I control this lake. Fantastic. But if there's more out there, then I would like to do it. So that's my thing, is to get these third spheres, right? You have your family, and then you have your immediate friends, their friends, and then you have everyone else, And so those are people who would never know your name otherwise except through marketing. So that's been a big goal of mine, is to get out there and do that. Now, as far as ROI, it's extremely hard to, and I tell people this all the time. I go, it's so hard to put a dollar amount on, or a percentage on it, because I don't know. Would these people have called me otherwise? Who knows? That you really can't tell if it was a market. There's no one advertisement where I'm like, that one, that's the one that got me all these clients, I'm going to keep using that. It's just consistently being out there. Like, that is the biggest thing. And so the return on investment of that is infinite. So being out there, being the go-to person for these people to reach out to, and your sphere, and just, continue to use that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Good answer. So let's dive into that. Like, talking about your sphere of influence. You have a very strong sphere of influence. Every agent starting out, so that's where you start always. So what are some of the ways specifically that you sort of add new people into that sphere, and like just constantly build new contacts into your database? Like, what are some specific things you do with that?
So I think once you have your very local sphere, and then I think it's more of just being social. It's really about making those new contacts, and not being over the top about it, because that's the big thing. If I know somebody who's for instance, I have someone who runs a rental management company. Now, when so say that I wanted to meet with him, because I'm like, man, these people, if they have to sell, or he knows investors who want to buy more, I should get in with him. You don't want to make it over the top, and you also don't want to make it just, there's two ways to go about it, I guess. You could become friends and do that kind of stuff, or you could do it from a strictly business standpoint. But really what I like, people just know that I'm in the business, and then they connect me with these people. So, and that's really what it is. And social network, it's hard to do now, but like the little networking groups, things like that, those are all right, but I really feel like where I've gotten the most the most out of it was just being genuine to actual friends of mine, and then they're like, hey, this guy's actually looking to invest, or this, and then you'll it's one of those things where you have to do it, but the less you try and force it, then the easier it will come to you. I don't know how else to describe it
Yeah,
really, but like you
yeah.
can't force it on them. Like force them like I'm a real estate agent. Tell every person you know. That's just not a good way to do it.
So just to put simply, then it's really just a matter of just being yourself, being genuine, but at the same time
Yeah.
making sure people know that look, I'm a real estate agent. When you need something, like I'm your guy, but in a very
Yeah.
natural way. Is that? And
Yeah.
so, how long would you say did it take for you to actually start noticing, like, okay, like referrals are starting to come in? I'm starting to gain some traction from people recommending other people.
So I spent about a year and a half on a team. Then there was probably another year and a half, maybe 2 years, where I was having, I was fighting for business. Not struggling, but like it wasn't like where, man, this is, I could not work for 3 months and be okay, kind of thing, And so, like now, what I've done is, so I would say maybe about 4 or 5 years, and now it's great because referrals come in. I get random phone calls or I get random text messages. Hey, I just passed your contact information to a friend. They're going to be reaching out. And so, like you said it too, being genuine is so powerful in this because everyone, you can be looked at in two different ways. You can be looked at as a business professional, or you can be looked at as almost like a car salesman where no one wants to talk to you unless they know they're buying a house because they feel like it's a, you know, you know, if it's like vampires, whatever they say, if you invite them in, they'll never leave. You know what I mean? It's like the same. So it's almost like if they open that dialogue with you, that they are expected to buy a home. And I always do that. Is I tell them, listen, hey, I'm about building relationships. Whether you buy it tomorrow, 6 months from now, 3 years from now. I said I've had clients who I've been talking to for 2 years and they just closed on a house finally. I'm here for you to answer questions. I just want to be your go-to if you have anything. So don't feel like every time you pick up the phone that I'm expecting you to buy a house, right? If you have questions, whatever, like your AC on a closed client, if they're like, oh, well, my water heater's acting up. Hey, well, here's a guy I have, so let me just, send him over your way. So,
Yeah, love it. Is anything you do like on that adding new contacts, building your database? Do you do anything online with that? Like for example, Instagram. I know you're pretty active on there. Like, have you added new people into your database through social channels like that in an organic way outside of ads?
yeah, so I mean, a lot of people like they follow me or whatever, and then it's as far as like outside of my sphere, it'll be kind of like people you may know, and then they may add me or I may add them, and then that. But and people message me sometimes, because they don't have my phone number is basically everywhere with a real estate agent, but they'll message me directly on Instagram and say, hey, this, or we were out at I had a friend's wedding. And then and there's posted pictures on Instagram, and then they're like, oh, who else is tagged in this? And then they, like I said, it's that third degree of separation. And then so this is an actual story. Like she just messaged me. She goes, hey, we met at so and so's wedding. I saw you were tagged in the picture with me in it and whatever. And I'm actually looking to buy a home. Like, what do we do? Where do we start? So,
Wow.
like I said, it's about being present and genuine. I wasn't trying to tell her to buy a house. She just,
Yeah. Well, I think even us, like I think that's how we connected, right, on Instagram, just
yeah.
kind of randomly, right? So yeah, it's just about being present, like you said, and
Well, doing something like this is a great way. I mean, that's the other thing too is doing something like this because I've never done a podcast before, so I wasn't, but yeah, it's
nice. Yeah, no, for sure. So you talked about it a bit before, but another important part of it, obviously not only working your sphere of influence, adding new people to your sort of database and just building relationships, but what are some of the ways you actually nurture the relationship with a person? Because it's one thing just to put them into your contacts and whatnot, but it's another thing to sort of build that trust and that ongoing relationship. So you mentioned a couple of things you do, but what is that process? How do you view that process in the business?
So yeah, if someone came up to me and they were like, "Hey, we're looking next year, whatever." Say it's this, it's in, say we're in April of, yeah, April of this year, and they're like, "You know what? In the next 6 months, I'm really looking to do something." So I really don't. I don't like to start bombing them with like all kinds of emails and stuff like that. So and it's almost like shaming them that they're not buying a home now, because a lot of those like things that you put them on, uh, can sometimes be like, oh well, if you didn't buy a house this year, then you lost $40,000, and they're like, oh, that sucks. I don't want to hear about that. But it really is just like, and I'll tell them, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna just follow up with you. Life changes throughout, because my big thing, like I said, the first thing I tell them is like, I'm not expecting you to buy a house today, tomorrow, a month from now. Like if you got a 6 month timeline, that's fine. So what I'll do is I'll just touch base with them every once in a while. I'll be like, hey, just wanted to see, do you have any questions? I know a lot of people have been talking about whatever interest rates lately because they've been going down. Did you have any questions? And it's more about just putting them on there and then taking your CRM and then having a little notification pop up, and they're like, hey, make sure you text Bryan today and do that. And I'm like, all right, checklist, done. So
Yeah.
It's more personalized than that. I don't do automated emails or anything like that. So.
Okay, so I was going to ask next. So what about the person who hasn't said, hasn't expressed interest that I want to buy or sell in like 6 months? Just someone that you met, they're in your database. Do you do anything to engage with this person at all?
No, because I mean, a lot of these people, they come in as friends or friends of friends, and so my thing too is I don't want to be over the top. I want to be in front of mind, but I don't want to be like the one that's So even on my Instagram, I don't make it all sold, just listed, closed, this on market. Like I try and sprinkle in. And what I do, I have it. I've been not as good lately with Instagram, which is something I need to start doing more of. But I sprinkle in like things of, we have a home garden, and we really like that. And so I'll do like a home video. I'm like, oh, look at look at these tomatoes. People will message me about gardening stuff. Well, you can't garden if you rent a house. So, you know what I mean? So, or if you're in an apartment. So, not that I'm specifically saying like, oh yeah, garden's the way to go, but like just putting in your personal life, because people want, it's like reality TV. They want to work with somebody they feel like they know. They may have met me once, twice, three times, but they know me. They know my fiance. They know like, oh, how's the garden? Or I saw you were growing bananas and whatever. And people comment on all that kind of stuff, and they're more likely to engage you. That's the big thing, is you want them to engage you, because then your posts reach them. And that's the big thing, is to get them. And nobody wants to see just listed, look how much money I made. This is great. Like you want to do whatever, pictures of you at the beach, your family, things like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I totally agree. So what about the actual sale itself? At the end of the day, you have to execute. You're providing a service. You're buying or selling a house for someone. So let's say on the listing side, like, do you do anything unique to sort of differentiate, let's say, your listings from the dozens of other listings in the community?
Yeah, so something that's become particularly popular now is doing Matterport 3D. So like the 3D imaging for the homes. I've been doing that for 5-6 years now, but I think that's a really good added benefit. And not a lot of people use it. It depends on the area that you're in. I mean, I'm sure doing photography in New York is exponentially more expensive than it is doing it in like Orlando. So it comes down to cost and things like that. But 3D imaging, I think, is a huge value, especially when people were in the throes of COVID, because people didn't want people in their house, people didn't want to go out of their house or into anyone else's house. So what better way than to create a 3D 24-hour open house? So that, I think, is something that's very powerful, and I think that's a huge added value to your client, because now your client knows. And what I tell them is, I say, anybody who's coming into the house, they've essentially already seen it. They're coming just to make sure that it actually looks the way that it is on that 3D imaging. If they want to know the area, they can drive around the block. They don't need to do showings for that. And so I think that's a huge added value because now your seller isn't walking in and out of their house 50 times a day. It might be just 15 times total, and then it presents with an offer because they've already seen it. So I think that's one of the added values. Drones, I love drones. I mean, it shows like a great lot size. It can show you, I mean, photography, I don't understand some of these. A lot of agents, they try and cut costs, and that will be your absolute downfall. It doesn't matter if the house is not 100% amazing, show ready. Good, well done pictures can make, even the most, unattractive house look good or better, than just snapping them with your phone. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. Great insight there. Again, I want to ask, you mentioned it before. So after the sale, let's say, of the listing, the job isn't done. You have to continue like building that relationship with a client. You mentioned, so are there any unique touch points that you do to stay engaged other than the closing date? So for example, on a closing day, like what do you do at that point? Do you send them like a text, a letter?
So I try to go to my closings, and I actually have, so one of the things that I did, when you first start, you think that by the time you get to a closing, you're going to know this person like the back of your hand because, you talk to them all the time and all that, but you really don't. I've found that out because I would love to get them some personalized gift and then I always found myself a day before closing, like, what do I do? I'm like, all right, well, I guess I go into the liquor store, grabbing some champagne, a nice bottle of champagne that they may not even know is nice champagne, and then getting them a card, and you feel, especially on bigger transactions or more personal transactions, you just really, I felt almost bad bringing it, it's almost like I should have just brought nothing. So what I wanted to do is create a replicable, that was the big thing, replicable closing gift that is also personalized. And it's actually pretty cool. So this is, so people have left a lot of, one of the things I get commented on mostly is, not mostly, but a lot of is my closing gift. So what I have is I do a bowl, like a big salad bowl, and then I put it in like you would get like a gift bag, and I have olive oil. And so there's a thing, we'll backtrack a second. So when I closed on my house, my grandma got me olive oil, wine, and bread. And it was wine to celebrate the times, no matter how big or small. Bread, so those in your home may never go hungry. And what was it? Wine, bread, and salt.
Olive oil.
Right? Olive oil, so health and well-being. So I was wondering, I was like, what is this? What a random assortment of gifts. So then I looked it up, and it's, everyone says it's theirs. Every culture, it's like, oh, that's an Italian, it's an Irish thing, it's a this. But all of them have little different variations of it. So I go, well, which ones, which ones can I do? And which ones, look good? So I did wine, bread, a candle, salt, wine, bread, candle, salt. Sure, I'll think of the other one. But so what I do is a nice glass of or a nice bottle of champagne, and then to make it personalized, I do bread. And my fiance loves to bake, so we make like a banana bread or something like that. So now it's personalized, right? And it's not terribly difficult to do. Olive oil, and then so what I do is I take rosemary from my garden and I infuse. I'll just take like gallons of olive oil, basically all in one day, infuse it, and then I've got 15 little things of olive oil, and so I'll put that in there. So it's personal. It's from our garden. The salt is just basically the pink salt. I guess that's the fanciest you can get when it comes to salt. And then candle, I have a friend of mine who actually hand makes candles. Like I thought he bought them and then upsold them. I thought it was like one of those kind of things, but he actually hand pours them in his house, which I was impressed by. So I go, oh, absolutely. I got to order those actually, now that I think about it. But he hand pours them, and I go, I would love to give you business, and so I give him those. So, and then I give him like a little sheet that kind of explains what they're getting. Cause when I got it, I had no idea. So it was wine so that you celebrate all of your joys, no matter how big or small. Salt, so you have flavor in all of your relationships. Bread, so that those in your home may never be hungry. A candle for light in your darkest times, and then olive oil for health and well-being. And then I frame it, and it says established on whatever date they close on. So that to me is that has been my go-to, and it's a lot of people. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's thought of that, but that's been pretty pretty good reviews on that one.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that. I usually ask this question a lot. I've never heard something like that, so that's pretty awesome. Great
Yeah.
idea. One of the last questions I want to ask you here. So, you close, call it 50 plus deals a year as a single agent, especially in a market like this right now. Do you have any unique stories of a closing that sort of didn't go as expected and sort of hurdles you had to overcome to get it done?
That's a curveball because I mean they all have their little like crazy hiccups and all kinds of stuff. I mean one of the biggest things. So I mean I did have a home that had several offers on it. You know they had over 150 showings and 50 offers in 3 days. And so what we did is we kept all of our highest offers because deals can still fall apart. And you would think in a seller's market that everybody's just happy to have their offer accepted. But then they started making all kinds of crazy requests, and we're like, well, we're not going to do this. And then they eventually canceled. So we were like, what is this? So then I had to filter down. And the hard part is that all these buyers who were submitting crazy over the top offers were getting theirs accepted. So it was really, going back on market, in our market at least, can be pretty damaging. You may not get that price that you want again. So going back on market is the last thing you want to do. So what I had to do is funnel down all of those 50 offers. And I'm like, okay, well, here's top 5. Okay, well, 2 of them are gone. Let me go to these other 3 that are there. And then eventually we got an offer that was, pretty much the same. And then that one ended up closing. But yeah, I mean, that's really thinking outside of the box is what's going to set you up for being the agent that they're like, I could not have done this without you. Because that's the real thing, is that I like to educate my clients to make them, I joke around with them, but I tell them, I'm like, you want to be so knowledgeable by the end of this that you almost feel like you could do it yourself, And a lot of agents feel like you're shooting yourself in the foot with that, but they don't want to do it themselves. That's why they called you. They could Google it just as fast, but that was my big, crazy one, is that just tons of offers and
Yeah,
we had
I love
to
that. I love
filter
that.
through
Thanks for
them, and
sharing
it's kind
that.
of strategic, So
Yeah, no, that's cool.
sure, there's a more difficult one, but
No, that's great. You already gave so many amazing pieces of advice, but if you had to drill it down to just one, if you had to give that one piece of advice to either like a brand new agent just starting out or an agent that's really trying to like step up their game, what would that piece of advice be?
be genuine and don't try and shove the fact that you're a real estate agent down everybody's throats, because that's not, they're gonna unfollow you. They're not gonna react to your stuff. I would say be genuine, and as far as like social media and stuff like that, pepper in some of your own personal life. People want to work with somebody who they think is approachable, not a robotic. And the other thing too is don't make it look like you're too busy. I can't tell you how many people have told me that they think that I'm too busy, so they didn't want to waste my time. So that's that's another way to that's why you don't want to over the top. This just listed, close this, make it
Yeah,
personal. So
love that. I like that. Awesome advice there. Brian, I do want to be mindful of your time. I do end off each chat with what I call the top 3. You ready?
yep,
All right. Number 1, your favorite or most impactful book that you've read?
The Art of War, but for business.
Very nice. Classic. Number 2, your favorite vacation spot?
Tahoe.
Nice. Nice. And lastly, if you can go back, what's the one thing you wish you knew when you were just starting out in real estate?
I should have bought more early on. Should have bought more for myself.
Nice. Very good. All right, Brian. And lastly, if someone wants to reach out, learn more, where's the best place they can find you?
You can, my Instagram is difficult, but you can look up, it would be Bryan Burns, the Florida agent, and there's just underscores in between each word. So BryanBurns and the Florida agent, underscores between there. And that would be the easiest one.
Amazing. Perfect. All right, Brian, man, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me here. I'm so glad we got in touch. There's so much amazing insights and value that you provided. I'm sure a lot of people are going to find this chat very valuable for sure. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome being on here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks again. We'll chat soon.
Yep. Bye.